Hi, it's Patrick Hutzel from IntensiveCareHotline.com, where we instantly improve the lives of families of critically ill patients in intensive care, so that you can have peace of mind, real power, real control, and so that you can influence decision making fast, even if you're not a doctor or a nurse in intensive care. In last week's blog, I've shown you the 4 deadly sins that families of critically ill patients in intensive care constantly make, but they are unaware of. You can read, watch, or listen to last week's update by clicking on the link below this video. In this week's blog, I've got a special treat for you. Pay close attention, because I want to share with you why your body language may be the biggest obstacle to peace of mind, control, power, and influence whilst your loved one is critically ill in intensive care. If your loved one has been admitted to intensive care for critical illness, I bet that you and your family feel like you are out of your comfort zone, and you and your family feel frustrated, anxious, scared, stressed, vulnerable, challenged, and you have no peace of mind, no control, no power, and no influence. It's not a good situation to be in, and you feel like your worst nightmares have become a reality, and you feel like the world is tumbling down on you. Worst of all, you feel very tense. You don't know what to do, how to react, or how not to react. After more than 15 years intensive care nursing in 3 different countries, I have seen and worked with thousands of critically ill patients and their families in intensive care. After all those years, whilst working in intensive care as an intensive care nurse, not only have I seen that families of critically ill patients in intensive care have no peace of mind, they have no control, they have no power, and they have no influence in this challenging situation. What I've also seen is that as soon as families enter intensive care, their body language speaks louder than their words. Some research suggests that only 7% of our communication is with our words, and more than 65% of our communication is through our body language. Therefore, your body language is much more important than the words you are using. I also bet that your body language screams loudly of your insecurity. It screams that you have no power, no control, and no influence, let alone peace of mind. Body language is far more powerful than you think it is, and generally speaking, families of critically ill patients in intensive care have very poor body language when they come to intensive care. I bet that as soon as you have entered the intensive care unit, your body language is along the lines of: you have a very poor body posture with slumped shoulders and a hunched back. Your gaze is lowered and you avoid strong eye contact. Your handshake is weak because you are intimidated by the perceived power of the intensive care team. Your arms are crossed and your body is closed and tense. Your whole body language simply screams of insecurity and anxiety. And you are shrinking back from others, and your body language says, "Don't hurt me." Now, these features of poor body language and posture usually go hand in hand in situations where we feel threatened, insecure, and out of our comfort zone. That's normal, and it is what it is. However, in a situation where your loved one is critically ill in intensive care, you and your family need to be aware that this is how other people, including the intensive care team, will see you. Also be aware that this is how your critically ill loved one is seeing you if they are conscious. Do you think that the intensive care team views you as influential, powerful, and in control if they see you with your shoulders slumped, with your back hunched, with a weak handshake, with avoiding strong eye contact, and with your arms crossed? Do you think that if your body language screams that you are insecure and that you are consciously and unconsciously intimidated by the intensive care team's perceived power, that the intensive care team won't pick up on it? Never let your insecurities and your poor body language hold you back from peace of mind, control, power, and influence. Do you also think that if your critically ill loved one is in one of the following situations, such as very unstable and in a very critical condition in intensive care, or if they are in a life-threatening situation in intensive care, or if they are in intensive care for long-term treatments and long-term stays, or if they are even approaching the end of life in intensive care, that poor body language will hold you back from peace of mind, control, power, and influence? Do you think that if your critically ill loved one is in one of those situations, that it's important that you do have peace of mind, control, power, and influence? Do you think that if the intensive care team is having all the decision-making power and authority in those situations, that it's easy for them to drive their agenda and not yours and or your critically ill loved one's agenda? Now, know this. I know it's not your fault and it's human nature. Listen, I know how you feel, and I also know it's not your fault. It's just human nature that we display poor body language when we are stressed, challenged, and out of our comfort zone. It's normal, and there is very little you can do as a starting point. However, now that you are aware that it's happening, and now that you are aware that it's a mistake, now is the time to change it. I vividly remember that when I first started working in intensive care as a nurse, I had very poor body language because I certainly was intimidated by all those smart people around me. It wasn't until I realized that I needed to change my body language that things would change for me as well. By displaying good and powerful body language, by putting out your shoulders, by straightening your back, by making and maintaining strong eye contact, by having a strong handshake, and by uncrossing your arms and display open body language, you are sending strong signals to the outside world, and most of all to the intensive care team and to your critically ill loved one. When you do that, you show to the outside world that you can deal with whatever this situation is throwing at you, at your family, and at your critically ill loved one. It's also a strong sign for the intensive care that you are willing to deal with this challenge, and it's also a strong sign that you are determined to have control, power, influence, and peace of mind. You might say, Patrick, you can do that because you've been in the environment for so long and you know what to do, whereas I'm new to this environment and I don't know whether I can do it. Well, the reality is, if I can do it, you can do it too. Listen, I hear what you're saying, but the reality is that if I can do it, you can do it too. I certainly don't have any superpowers or any other special skills. If I can do it, you can do it too, because I'm just a regular guy. Your job is to be aware and to recognize that your body language when you first come to intensive care sucks, and then change it, because if you do, I'll bet that the intensive care team will notice, and your critically ill loved one will notice, even if they are unconscious. If you display strong body language that is confident, determined, that puts you on alert, I bet that the world around you will take notice, and it will leverage your level of peace of mind, control, power, and influence. I also bet that the intensive care team will treat you differently, because they realize that you are willing to deal with this often once-in-a-lifetime challenge. And because it is often a once-in-a-lifetime challenge, you and your family don't want to get it wrong. So, how can you have more peace of mind, control, power, and influence whilst your loved one is critically ill in intensive care? You get to that all-important feeling of peace of mind, control, power and influence when you download your free Instant Impact Report now by entering your email below. In your free Instant Impact Report, you learn quickly how to get peace of mind, real power and real control, and how you can influence decision making fast whilst your loved one is critically ill in intensive care. Your free Instant Impact Report gives you in-depth insight that you must know whilst your loved one is critically ill or is even dying in intensive care. Sign up and download your free Instant Impact Report now by entering your email below. In your free Instant Impact Report, you learn how to speak the secret intensive care language so that the doctors and the nurses know straight away that you are an insider and that you know and understand what's really happening in intensive care. In your free reports, you'll also discover how to ask the doctors and the nurses the right questions. Discover the many competing interests in intensive care and how your critically ill loved one's treatment may depend on those competing interests. You will discover how to eliminate fear, frustration, stress, struggle and vulnerability, even if your loved one is dying. You get 5 killer tips and strategies helping you to get on the right path to peace of mind, control, power and influence in your situation. You'll also get real-world examples that you can easily adapt to your and your critically ill loved one's situation. You'll learn how to stop being intimidated by the intensive care team and how you will be seen as equals. You will get crucial behind-the-scenes insight so that you know and understand what's really happening in intensive care, and how you need to manage doctors and nurses in intensive care. And it's not what you think. Thank you for tuning into this week's blog, and I'll see you again in another update next week. Make sure you also check out our Your Questions Answered section where we answer your questions, or send me an email to support@intensivecarehotline.com with your questions. This is Patrick Hutzel from intensivecarehotline.com, and I'll see you again next week in another update.